Good morning, YouTube or BookTube, or this is Johnny. Still haven't got my glasses replaced. I told you that in my last couple of videos I scratched my lens when I was feeding the birds. This week I'm gonna maybe get around to getting new glasses. But anyway, I thought I'd make a video since it's a Sunday. My wife just left to go to church to set up for a church potluck. It is 9:49 in the morning here in Southwest Michigan. It is February the 4th, 2024. It is a Sunday. And it is a sunny day. We have been blessed with sunlight today, not eternal darkness, which is a blessing. And yeah, so it's supposed to be sunny tomorrow, sunny Tuesday. Maybe I'll go out into the world and enjoy the sunlight. So yeah, it is February the 4th, 2024. It is 9:50 here in Southwest Michigan, Holland, Michigan. I am writing in my diary. I'm on page 105 this morning for the year 2024. Reading None But Christ by John Wall. I think the full title is, what's the full title? The Puritans had long titles for their treatises. None But Christ, or a plain and familiar treatise of the knowledge of Christ, exciting all men to study and know Jesus Christ and Him crucified, with a peculiar applicatory and saving knowledge in divers sermons upon 1 Corinthians 2, verse 2, which reads, "For I determined not to know anything among you save Jesus Christ and Him crucified." 1 Corinthians 2, chapter 2, verse 2. So that I'm in this, as I told you, I have in my main study, I have this bookcase, and on the top shelf of the bookcase, I have a line of Puritan reprints that I bought last year. And what I do is I go through them every morning. I pick one that I read one, and then I read the next one in the line. And this is the one today, None But Christ. John Wall lived from 1646 and he died in 1652. That doesn't make sense. No, that doesn't make sense. He was a pastor of St. Michael's, Cornhill, London, from 1646 into 1652. I assume they don't know when he was born. It said, little is known of John Wall. He was a pastor of St. Michael's, Cornhill, in London from 1646 to 1652. He was a Presbyterian, and that is the extent of what he is known about him. But this book alone makes him of note. It was his only published work, but is unlikely he could have written or preached a better one. It is a great Puritan reprint, None But Christ. So that's what I'm reading in the sequence. Now I do read Henry Bullinger's Decades, I showed you that. And I do read that New Testament theology. I break it up through the week. But today is Sunday, the first day of the week, writing in my diary. And I was going to show you, well, this video is a used book haul. I know you guys like used book hauls. And yesterday was a Saturday and there was nice weather. And so we had our granddaughters, who, as you know, our oldest son, who just turned 43, lives down the street with his wife and his two little girls, Josie and Cora. And we had Josie and Cora yesterday. So Emily and Caleb could have some quiet time, some time to themselves. And we went out to Fennville, which is south of us about 20 minutes. And there's Fennville Warehouse, used bookstore. And I showed you, I made a video of that a couple months ago. And we go out there to look at their used books. It's a warehouse, and it has a small area. It's a big warehouse, but just a small area is the used books. It's dark in there and kind of damp, but you never know what you're going to find. Usually I don't like to go, because when I do go, I see the same books over and over, but I tend to find things. I always come home with something. And also, right across the street from Fennville Warehouse is the Fennville Public Library, and they have a used book room where they sell books they have taken out of circulation. So these are the books I found. We found, our granddaughters, Josie, Joy, and Cora, found some children's books, and these are what I found at the Fennville Warehouse used bookstore, and what I found at the Fennville Library used their book room, where they sell books that they've taken out of circulation. First of all, I'll show you the books I got at the Fennville Warehouse, if I can remember. I gotta separate some things here. So, yeah, I try to go to Fennville Warehouse used bookstore about every 3 or 4 weeks, depending upon the weather. I don't like to travel in bad weather, and because they do put new stuff out. And if you look around, of course my time was kind of limited because the girls were getting kind of antsy, and so I look around, and I try to go around 3 or 4 times to look for stuff, and then I usually find something. You know, I'm good at finding. Since I have a wide interest as far as books. I mean, I like good literary fiction. I like books on art. I like memoirs, biographies, history, art, books on travel. I like books on poetry and things like that. So I have a lot of interest, and so I can always find something in that category. Plus I collect writers. And one of the writers I collect, I found a book that I didn't know he wrote, and his name is Tim O'Brien. And this is Dad's Maybe book. And Tim O'Brien, he wrote a very famous book called The Things That They Carried, which I think takes place during the Vietnam conflict. Here's a picture of Tim O'Brien. He's quite elderly. Tim O'Brien acclaimed novels include The Things They Carried, July, and Going After Kalakito, which received the 1979 National Book Award in Fiction. Anyway, he lives in Austin, Texas. Anyway, he wrote this, it's like a memoir. And apparently he got married he was quite old when he got married, and he had his first child, which was a son. And he writes, it's kind of like, he wrote this memoir to be left for after his first son was born, he had another son. The point of this whole little thing is that he wrote this book as a memoir, telling his sons about his life, his writing life, just because he was old when he had them, and if they became teenagers, maybe he'd be dead, and he wanted to leave something behind that they would know about their dad. So it's Dad's Maybe book. So I found this. I collect Tim O'Brien. I've not read his books, but I collect them. So that goes, the point is I collect writers. Another writer I collect, she writes biographies. Her name is Claire Tomalin. I have her biography. The last biography I read was of her on Samuel Pepys, who wrote those famous diaries, but she also wrote a biography on Charles Dickens. This is her memoir, A Life of My Own. So I collect her biographies. I think she has other biographies. Let me see if they're listed here. Yeah, she wrote a biography on Catherine Mansfield, A Secret Life. She wrote a biography, The Life and Death of Mary Wollstonecraft, Shelley and His World, Dickens, Jane Austen, A Life, Samuel Pepys, The Unequaled Self. I read that a couple of years ago. I really enjoyed that. Thomas Hardy, A Time-Torn Man, Charles Dickens, A Life. So she's a very famous biographer, and this is her memoirs. So I collect her, and I can put this in my Claire Tomalin collection. I collect books on art. This is art history. This is The Vanishing Velazquez, 19th century bookseller's obsession with a lost masterpiece by Cumming. He was a very famous 18th century Spanish painter, and apparently this is like a non-fiction account of a lost painting by Velazquez that she goes into history of. I like art history. This is Wallace Stevens. This is his book of poetry, The Poem of the End of the Mine, Selected Poems and Other Play, edited by Holly Stevens. Wallace Stevens is one of my favorite poets. I have several editions of this volume. I have a hardback, but I like the cover of this edition. And this is his poetry. And he's one of my favorite poets. So I just got this from my Wallace Stevens collection. I just showed you, this is history, Russia's war, a history of the Soviet war effort, 1941 to 1945. I just showed you his book, Blood and Iron, Imperialism, War. It's a history of the Second World War. This is his other book, Russia's War. So I picked this up. Yeah, he was currently working on the Oxford History of the Second World War. He's written a lot of books, and so I look out for his books. I have 3 of them down in the lower level. He wrote all kinds of books. Let's see here. So yeah, I look for his books. This is Gary Snyder, who was he's known as a beat poet, but he would not like that. He's a poet. I think he's still alive. Gary Snyder is known to be part of the beat generation. Jack Kerouac, Allen Ginsberg, William Burroughs. And this is his book, Gary Snyder, A Place in Space, Ethics, Aesthetics in Wastelands, Essays. And I noticed when it has in the chapters 7 notes on the beat generation and the new wind. I don't know, he's really into ecology, nature, Zen Buddhism. It says here in the back, Gary Snyder is the author of more than 20 collections of poetry and prose, winner of the Pulitzer Prize in 1975, finalist for the National Book Critics Circle Award in 1992 and 2005. He has been awarded the Bullingen Poetry Prize, etc., etc. He has lived in the foothills of Sierra Nevada since 1970. So this is Gary Snyder. I have in my beat collection Gary Snyder's letters to Allen Ginsberg, and I have other books by him. This is a novel. This goes into the Fennville Library. I'll show that in a minute. I found this on the top shelf at the Fennville warehouse. They have older books on top of these bookcases, and I saw this name, A. Woollcott. Now, if you don't know who A. Woollcott is, he was a very famous in his day literary figure in I think the 1930s and 40s. He wrote for the New Yorker when it first started, and this is his biography written by it's called A. Woollcott, His Life and His World. And it's in the dedication to the 1,000 friends of Alexander Woollcott. This book is, with fear and trembling, dedicated to one of them. And this is written by, this was published in 1945 by Samuel Hopkins Adams. So I picked this up because I collect books on that time period of the New Yorker magazine, and this is A. Woollcott. And he hung around with very famous literary figures of that time, Dorothy Parker. He was involved in the New York playwright scene. He knew Isaiah Berlin and other figures of that time. So I put a documentary in my live journal, Crooked Fingers, about that time period of A. Woollcott. If you want to go to my live journal, Crooked Fingers, and see that video from YouTube. This is another writer I collect, and I found this on the top shelf too. It's called The Romantic Egotist. It's a novel by Louis Auchincloss. I collect his writings. He wrote 60 books, fiction and nonfiction. I think he was a lawyer for a law firm in New York City, and he writes about the upper crust of the New York City, and that world of finance, of banking, wealthy people of that time period. And I really have always enjoyed his writings. And this is his novel, The Romantic Egotist. And I didn't have this one in my Auchincloss collection. But this was published in 1954. So this goes into my Auchincloss collection. Then I found a paperback by John Fowles, who's known for his novel, what's it called? It was called The French Woman, something like that. My mind just went blank, but these are like little essays. The French Lieutenant's Woman. Yeah, and he wrote The Collector, The Magnus, The Ebony Tower. And these are like little essays by John Fowles. It's called Artitus. So I collect John Fowles. I read many years ago his novel, The French Lieutenant's Woman. It was made into a movie. It's just little essays. So this goes into my John Fowles collection. This is a novel I saw, and I never heard of this writer. His name is Victor Lodato, and this is his novel, Edgar and Lucy. And it's published by Picador. I like Picador Publisher. And it says on the front, a delight to read, riveting, exuberant, Symphony Duprex Signy, the New York Times Book Review. It just looked really interesting, and I'm always looking for novels. I collect novels, as you all know. I like good writing. I like reading novels. I do read a lot of postmodernism and modernism, but I like just traditional novels, and this looks like a traditional novel. so I picked it up. This is what I was reading that book I mentioned about the Maverick, Fitchfield and the Golden Age of Publishing. And in that book, I told you that they published a memoir on the double hex, a personal account of the discovery of the structure of DNA. And I found a copy of it at the Fennville warehouse. The double hex, a personal account of the discovery of the structure of DNA by James D. Watson. This is a critical Norton edition. This is considered one of the most great science books of the 20th century. It's a personal account of how they discovered the structure of DNA by James Watson. It's written in a memoir collection, a memoir style. There's a picture of the DNA. So I don't know, I had read about this book and being published. Maybe it says in here it was first published. It says in here, anyway, I picked it up. And then this is J.M. Coetzee, Life and Times of Michael K. I had this already, but I collect his writings. He's wrote Waiting for the Barbarians. He was a South African writer. It says here in the back, winner of Britain's most prestigious literary award, the 1983 Booker McConnell Prize. So I collect his writings. I wasn't sure if I had this one, but I do, but I like the cover anyway. The one I have, I might have the same cover, but I don't know. And then I picked up, this is what I started reading last night. This is Blueprints of the Afterlife, a novel by Rayan Boudinot. This is kind of like science fiction. This is what I read last night. I never heard of this writer, but on the cover it mentions Tom Robbins, who I collect. He wrote that very famous kind of 60s kind of novel, Even Cowgirls Get the Blues. Tom Robbins wrote a little blurb here, Digital, where a brave new world is merely an analog. Blueprints of the Afterlife makes both 1984 and the Book of Revelation seem like yesterday's news. I never heard of this writer, but I read it last night, kind of taking a break from reading Nietzsche, about Nietzsche. It's kind of like a little vacation. Also, there's a blurb by Will Self, who is one of my favorite writers. Will Self, little blurb. Blueprints of the Afterlife is a chewy with a delightful disgust and suggests those myths of near future to adopt J.H. Bullard's trope. They are really truths about right now. So, publisher weekly, a little blurb, ingenious, frenzied, hilarious, and paranoid. I don't know, I really, it says here, another review, a little blurb, Murakami-inspired fit of speculative madness that marries the postmodernist streak of Neil Stephenson to the laconic humor of the Big Lebowski. So I don't know, I read it. It's kind of like a little break from heavy kind of study of Nietzsche's I just forgot how to spell Nietzsche's life and his philosophy. So apparently I don't have time to show you the books from the Fennville Public Library used book room. It's going on 25 minutes. That'll be another video. This is the Fennville Warehouse used book haul. Hoping you're having a good Sunday, a good week. I might do another video tonight of the books I got from the Fennville Public Library used book room. but this is getting to be too long, and I know this thing's going to shut down. I did get some new CDs in the mail lately. Last week I got the new J Mascis CD, What Do We Do Now? He's from Dinosaur Jr. And then I got some ambient doom music, Funerals, Let the Earth Be Silent. So with that, I'm going to close. I'll do another video. This is going to shut down. I'm doing okay. Hope you're doing okay. Thank you for the new subscribers. Thank you for the comments. Do pray you're all doing well. And until next time, bye.